Every single day, across gardens just like yours, a silent crisis unfolds. More than 80% of the world's flowering plants depend on animal pollinators to reproduce, yet populations of bees, butterflies, and other essential creatures have declined by nearly 40% in the past 50 years. Empty flower beds, unpollinated vegetables, fruit trees that never bear fruit. This is not merely an inconvenience for gardeners. It is the slow unraveling of one of nature's most vital partnerships, a relationship that has existed for over 100 million years. To respond, many well-meaning gardeners have rushed to plant flowers, any flowers, in hopes of attracting these essential visitors back to their yards. But something was already broken in our understanding of what pollinators truly need. And to bring back the butterflies, the native bees, and the hummingbirds, sometimes planting pretty flowers is simply not enough. Strangely, the solution comes not from exotic plants shipped from distant nurseries, but from a community of life that was once thriving right outside your door, in your own neighborhood, before perfectly manicured lawns replaced the wild meadows. So how can your humble backyard garden become a sanctuary, a vital refuge for creatures that desperately need our help? That is exactly what we will explore today. A pollinator is any creature that moves pollen from the male part of a flower to the female part, enabling the plant to produce seeds and fruit. Most people immediately think of honeybees, those familiar striped insects we associate with hives and honey. But the world of pollinators extends far beyond these domesticated workers. Native bees, of which there are over 4,000 species in North America alone, perform the bulk of pollination in wild ecosystems. Their fuzzy bodies, specially adapted with branched hairs called scopa, carry pollen with remarkable efficiency. Unlike honeybees, many native bees are solitary creatures, nesting in hollow stems, abandoned beetle burrows, or bare patches of soil. Then there are the butterflies, those delicate ambassadors of the insect world. Their long, thin tongues, called proboscises, reach deep into tubular flowers that other pollinators cannot access. Moths perform similar services under the cover of darkness, visiting pale, fragrant blooms that open only at night. Hummingbirds, with their needle-like bills and hovering flight, specialize in flowers too deep for most insects. Even beetles, flies, and wasps contribute to the grand pollination network that keeps our world in bloom. Each of these creatures has evolved alongside specific plants over millions of years, developing relationships so precise that some flowers will only open for particular visitors. This coevolution has created a web of interdependence so complex that removing a single thread can unravel entire communities. Understanding this web is the first step toward rebuilding it in your own garden. By the middle of the 20th century, pollinators faced mounting pressures from every direction. Agricultural intensification replaced diverse wild landscapes with monoculture fields stretching to the horizon. Pesticides designed to kill harmful insects could not distinguish between pests and beneficial visitors. Habitat fragmentation carved continuous ecosystems into isolated islands, preventing pollinators from finding mates and new food sources. Diseases and parasites, spread by the global trade in managed bee colonies, jumped into wild populations with devastating consequences. Climate change shifted flowering times out of sync with pollinator life cycles, creating mismatches that leave both plants and animals struggling. Native plants disappeared from the landscape. Nectar sources became scarce. Nesting sites vanished under concrete and lawn grass. Pesticide residues accumulated in the tissues of foraging insects. Populations crashed. Migration routes fragmented. Genetic diversity narrowed. Local extinctions rippled outward. The intricate timing of spring emergence and summer blooming fell apart. But the final and most insidious factor was simply disconnection. As humans spent less time outdoors, fewer people noticed the decline. Gardens filled with ornamental plants, bred for visual appeal rather than ecological function, Sterile hybrid flowers with doubled petals offered no nectar rewards. Non-native species failed to support the caterpillars that birds need to feed their young. According to surveys conducted by conservation organizations over the past decade, many once common species have become rare or disappeared entirely from suburban areas. Only fragments of their former populations remain, and scientists studying these trends have reached a sobering conclusion: without significant intervention, pollinator communities will continue to decline. There are moments in natural history that unfold without drama, no sudden catastrophe, no single event to point toward. Just a gradual emptying, until one spring morning you realize the garden is quieter than it used to be. A garden capable of supporting pollinators is not simply a collection of random flowers. It is a carefully designed habitat that provides food, shelter, water, and nesting sites throughout the entire growing season. When gardeners understand these needs, transformation becomes possible. Start with the foundation: native plants. These species have evolved alongside local pollinators for thousands of years, developing chemical signatures, bloom times, and flower shapes that perfectly match their visitors. A single native oak tree can support over 500 species of caterpillars. Native goldenrods and asters provide crucial late-season nectar when little else blooms. Milkweed serves as the exclusive food source for monarch butterfly caterpillars. No imported exotic can replicate these relationships. Diversity matters enormously. Plant species that bloom in early spring, when queen bumblebees emerge hungry from hibernation, add midsummer flowers for the peak of pollinator activity. Include late bloomers that fuel migration and help bees build winter reserves. Vary flower shapes to accommodate different tongue lengths and body sizes. Cluster plantings together so pollinators can feed efficiently without wasting energy traveling between scattered blooms. Consider leaving sections of your garden deliberately wild. Fallen leaves shelter overwintering butterflies. Dead flower stalks house the eggs and larvae of native bees. Bare soil patches provide nesting sites for ground-dwelling species. A small brush pile becomes habitat for countless beneficial insects. These messy corners are not neglect. They are deliberate acts of conservation. Water sources need not be elaborate. A shallow dish filled with pebbles and fresh water allows butterflies and bees to drink safely without drowning. Mud puddles provide minerals that male butterflies need for reproduction. A small fountain with gentle movement discourages mosquitoes while attracting thirsty visitors. Above all, eliminate or drastically reduce pesticide use. Even organic approved products can harm beneficial insects when applied carelessly. Integrated pest management, which emphasizes prevention and tolerates some pest damage, protects the pollinators you are working so hard to attract. Healthy pollinator populations often control pest insects naturally, reducing the need for intervention. With thoughtful design and patience, gardens begin to recover. Native bees discover the flowers and establish nesting territories nearby. Butterfly populations rebuild as caterpillars find their host plants. Hummingbirds add your yard to their daily foraging routes. The cascade of life returning creates its own momentum. More pollinators mean better plant reproduction. More seeds mean more birds. More birds mean pest control. The entire ecosystem strengthens. This bottom-up restoration rebuilds food webs starting from their most fundamental layer, the relationship between flowers and their pollinators. Success stories spread as neighbors notice the butterflies dancing above one garden while their own lawns remain lifeless. Corridors of habitat begin connecting isolated patches. Schools plant pollinator gardens. Cities revise mowing schedules to let roadsides bloom. What begins in one backyard spreads outward, creating networks of refuge across entire communities. The transformation of a single property demonstrates something many conservation efforts overlook. Individual action, multiplied across millions of gardens, represents an enormous opportunity. Collectively, residential landscapes cover more area than all national parks combined. Every garden matters. According to research conducted by university ecologists, pollinator populations can recover remarkably quickly when suitable habitat is provided. Within 3 to 5 years of establishing native plantings, gardens typically support pollinator communities, comparable to natural meadows. The creatures are resilient. They simply need the chance to return. Looking forward, models suggest that if just 10% of homeowners converted portions of their lawns to pollinator habitat, the resulting network would provide significant refuge for struggling species. The knowledge exists. The plants are available. Only human will determine whether gardens become sanctuaries or continue their slide toward ecological emptiness. The story of pollinators reveals something profound about our relationship with the natural world. We cannot solve this crisis through distant wilderness preservation alone. The solution lives in our own yards, in the choices we make about what to plant, what chemicals to apply, and how much messiness to tolerate. Among the creatures visiting flowers today, which one might you help survive into the next century?